Remember when Christmas didn't officially start until Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer showed up on TV? That 1964 Rankin Bass stop-motion special on NBC turned one shy little reindeer, a misfit elf named Hermey, Yukon Cornelius, the Bumble, and Burl Ives' cozy snowman into an annual event. No seasons, no episode count, just one special that lasted through multiple generations. Today, we're digging into 15 weird and wonderful facts you probably didn't know about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. From Santa's questionable attitude to lost puppets and misfit toy drama, before we dive in though, we need you to hit that like button and subscribe to remember when, and share this with a friend who still quotes Bumble's Bounce every December. Now, let's get into the countdown with number 15. Santa was kind of a jerk. Alright, I know, bold way to start, but if you've ever watched Rudolph as an adult, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Even after decades of edits, Santa still comes off surprisingly harsh, especially in the original 1964 version.
Rudolph, please, would you tone it down a bit? I mean, that nose of yours.
When he first sees Rudolph's glowing nose, he doesn't react with curiosity or concern. He immediately scolds Donner. That's not guidance, that's rejection. Later, the elves put on a full musical number, We Are Santa's Elves, complete with instruments and harmonies.
We are Santa's elves, filling Santa's shelves.
Santa watches, unimpressed, and when they finish, his only feedback is a flat,
Well, it needs work. I have to go.
Then he just dips. But Santa's roughest moment comes on Christmas Eve. When the bad weather rolls in, Santa doesn't hesitate. He announces Christmas is canceled. No debate, no backup plan, just canceled. It's only after Rudolph steps forward and Santa realizes that glowing red nose can cut through the fog that Christmas is suddenly back on. Now look, we're aware we're Monday morning quarterbacking a 60-year-old Christmas special. Santa's behavior probably didn't raise any eyebrows in 1964, authority figures didn't explain themselves, and tough love was just called parenting, but through modern eyes, the pattern is hard to miss. Santa doesn't reflect, he doesn't reconsider out of kindness, he pivots when the problem gets solved for him. Over the years, some of this edge has been softened. Certain broadcasts trimmed harsher moments to make room for commercials, but one thing never changes. Santa never apologizes. He simply accepts Rudolph once Rudolph becomes useful. Santa's not a villain, he's just the guy in charge who doesn't question the rules until they stop working for him. Santa eventually does the right thing, late and reluctantly, but good thing Santa's not the hero of this story, Rudolph is. And maybe that's the point. Number 14, Dolly's Dilemma, the misfit who didn't look broken. Now, if you've ever watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and thought, wait, what exactly is wrong with that dolly? You're not alone. For decades, viewers have been confused by the doll on the island of misfit toys.
And Christmas Day is here.
The train has square wheels, the bird can't fly, the cowboy rides an ostrich. Every other toy has a clear, visible problem, but the dolly? She looks perfectly fine. She walks, talks, blinks, there's no missing parts, no defects, no obvious flaw, which made her presence feel like a mistake, or at least an unanswered question fans noticed for years. The mystery lingered until 2007 when producer Arthur Rankin Jr. addressed it on NPR's Wait, Don't Tell Me podcast. There was nothing physically wrong with her. Her problem was psychological. She'd been abandoned by her owner, a girl named Sue. That's why she sings A Dolly for Sue.
A dolly for Sue.
She wasn't broken, she was depressed, low self-esteem, the kind of hurt that doesn't show. That's it. She's not on the island because of a manufacturing defect, she's there because she believes she doesn't belong, which, if you think about it, might be the most relatable reason of all. A 2014 graphic novel confirmed it as official canon, so if you've ever wondered why the dolly was there, congratulations! You weren't missing something, you were paying attention. Number 13, Rudolph was voiced by a 43-year-old woman and they tried to hide it. That shy, trembling reindeer with the glowing nose, yeah, he wasn't voiced by a kid or even a man. Rudolph was voiced by Billie Mae Richards, a 43-year-old Canadian radio veteran who'd spent decades perfecting one specific skill.
What do you desire?
Well, we're a couple of misfits from Christmas Town, and now we'd like to live here.
Sounding like a young boy without making it sound fake. Before Rudolph ever hit the airwaves in 1964, Richards was a fixture in Canadian radio drama. Throughout the 1950s, she voiced a character called the Kid on the CBC series Jake and the Kid, a show popular enough that when Rankin and Bass went hunting for voice talent in Toronto, her name was at the top of the list. She walked in and nailed it. That gentle, earnest voice that made kids instantly root for him. But here's where it gets very 1960s. The producers didn't want audiences to know that a woman was voicing their male lead, so in the original credits, Billie Mae Richards was listed as Billie Richards using a masculine nickname and her married surname to keep the illusion intact. Because apparently a talking reindeer with a glowing nose was believable, but a woman voicing him, whoa, that's too much of a stretch. The intentional name change accidentally became a long-running typo, with Billie Richards with a Y popping up in retrospectives and listings for years, even after her role became common knowledge. Richards never got the residuals Burl Ives enjoyed, but she embraced her place in Christmas history. She returned for the sequels and spoke warmly about the role for the rest of her life. So the next time Rudolph nervously says, "I kid! Remember, that voice belonged to a 43-year-old pro who'd already mastered vulnerability long before she ever stepped into Santa's workshop. Number 12, the ending that broke kids' heart and forced a rewrite. The emotional heart of Rudolph isn't the reindeer, it's the island of misfit toys. King Moonracer promises tell Santa and they'll all find homes. And in the original 1964 broadcast, Santa never comes back. After Rudolph saves Christmas, Santa flies off and the special ends. Credits roll. The misfits are left stranded and completely forgotten, which meant the moral of the story was accidentally, be different, help save Christmas, and the adults will still drop the ball. Kids noticed and they were not okay with it. NBC and Rankin Bass were flooded with letters from upset kids asking why Santa broke his promise. It was the largest volume of angry mail the studio had ever received. Thousands of letters demanding justice for the misfits. Apparently, 6-year-olds in 1964 had stronger follow-through than most network executives. So, the following year, Rankin Bass fixed it.
Rudolph, I promise, as soon as this storm lets up, I'll find homes for all those misfit toys.
For the 1965 rebroadcast, they added a brand new 90-second ending showing Santa returning to the island of misfit toys. Hermey operates a crane, the toys are loaded onto the sleigh, and Santa promises they'll all find loving homes. Problem solved, childhood faith restored. It's one of the rare times in TV history where the outrage wasn't from critics or parent groups, it was from actual kids demanding Santa kept his word and the studio listening. Turns out the real miracle of Rudolph wasn't the glowing nose, it was kids holding Santa accountable. Number 11, Rudolph started as a department store coloring book. Before Rudolph became a TV tradition, before the song and before the stop motion, Rudolph was a department store giveaway. In 1939, Robert L. May was a copywriter at Montgomery Ward, and the company had a problem. They wanted something original to hand out, a coloring book they wouldn't have to license from Disney, the most cost-effective Christmas miracle on record. So, May invented a reindeer. He drew from his own memories of being shy and bullied, shaping Rudolph as an outsider mocked for being different. Rudolph's red nose makes him an outcast until Santa realizes that same difference can guide a sleigh through heavy fog, so what made Rudolph odd suddenly makes him essential. May wrote Rudolph while his wife was battling cancer, hoping to create something hopeful for his young daughter during a frightening time. A corporate assignment became something much, much more meaningful. Montgomery Ward printed millions of copies. Kids connected and parents recognized the message, and without ever appearing on television or radio, Rudolph became a holiday phenomenon. No music, no animation, no glowing stop-motion nose. Just a short story about feeling different and discovering that different doesn't mean defective. Number 10, Rudolph actually hit the screen in 1948, and it wasn't Rankin Bass. Most people think Rudolph's screen debut happened in 1964 in that famous stop-motion special, but Rudolph actually made his first on-screen appearance 16 years earlier in a little-seen 1948 animated short, and it came from one of the biggest names in animation history.
Look, fellas, it's Rudolph.
The short was produced by the Jam Handy organization and directed by Max Fleischer, the legendary animator behind Betty Boop, Popeye, and the groundbreaking Superman cartoons. Yeah, that Max Fleischer. which already makes this version historically wild. Just like the original 1939 booklet, the 8-minute cartoon was created as a Montgomery Ward promotional film. It was meant to loop while kids waited in line to see Santa, basically Rudolph as pre-mall TV entertainment. And story-wise, this version sticks much closer to Robert L. May's original tale. There's no Hermey, no Yukon Cornelius, no Island of Misfit Toys, and definitely no abominable snow monster. It's a straightforward underdog story. Rudolph is mocked for his nose, Santa encounters trouble, and Rudolph saves Christmas. Oh, and that famous song? It's not in it. The 1948 release predates Johnny Mark's hit entirely. The opening credits play over an instrumental of Silent Night because the song we all know hadn't even been written yet. One more thing worth knowing. This short film was the very last movie Max Fleischer ever directed. So while the 1964 stop-motion special became the version generations grew up with, Rudolph's true screen debut belongs to a forgotten 1948 cartoon created by an animation legend built as a department store promo and missing almost everything we now associate with the character. Same reindeer, same red nose, just a completely different Christmas. Number 9, the soundtrack that took decades to become a chart giant. When Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer aired in 1964, it instantly felt like a classic. The soundtrack album? Not so much, at least not right away. Released in December of 1964, the album featured Burl Ives as Sam the Snowman, narrating and singing many of the special's key songs. On the main Billboard 200, it peaked at a modest number 92, somewhere between respectable and we'll try again next year. But here's the thing, this album wasn't built for a quick chart spike, it was built for December.
Means so much more when I see.
On Billboard's Christmas albums chart, the record climbed to number 13 and it kept coming back year after year. A 1972 reissue pushed it to number 6, and by 2004, 4 decades after release, it finally earned RIAA Gold certification. Slow and Steady wins the sleigh race. The special had a head start. Gene Autry's 1949 recording had already made the song a hit. Rankin and Bass weren't introducing Rudolph, they were expanding a legend. But the real breakout from the special wasn't the title song, it was A Holly Jolly Christmas.
Have a holly jolly Christmas, it's the best time of the year.
Sung by Burl Ives as Sam the Snowman, the song took on a life of its own. Ives re-recorded it for his 1965 album, and decades later, it's become one of the most played holiday songs in the world. In the streaming era, it routinely cracks the Billboard Hot 100, peaking as high as number 4, giving Ives the record for the longest gap between top 10 hits in chart history. Not bad for a singing snowman. So, while the soundtrack didn't dominate the charts overnight, it did something far more impressive. It never left. Number 8, Sam the Snowman was voiced by an actual Hollywood star. Sam the Snowman feels like the safest voice in Christmas television. It's warm, friendly, and calm. The kind of narrator who sounds like he's personally making sure everything's going to be okay, and that wasn't an accident. Sam was voiced by Burl Ives, and in 1964, he wasn't just a pleasant folk singer, he was a full-fledged Hollywood star. By the time Rudolph went into production, Ives had already played Big Daddy in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
On the inside was nothing. Nothing but his uniform from the Spanish-American War.
And won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in The Big Country. Yeah, the cuddly snowman narrator had an Oscar on his shelf. Christmas specials used to aim high. In other words, this wasn't novelty casting, this was prestige. Rankin and Bass needed star power to reassure NBC and sponsor General Electric. Burl Ives did exactly that. His presence gave Rudolph instant credibility, helped secure advertising support, and made the whole production feel like an event. And Ives genuinely loved the role. He watched it every year and spoke fondly of it for the rest of his life. Sam the Snowman doesn't feel like a cartoon character, he feels like someone you trust. That's what happens when you cast an Oscar winner to narrate a reindeer story. Now, quick pause, I need to know what part of Rudolph stuck with you the most as a kid. Tell us in the comments, and while you're down there, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next trip back down retro TV lane. Now let's get back into the countdown with number 7, Animagic. Why Rudolph's jerkiness is actually genius. That slightly jerky handmade look of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, yeah, the one that instantly signals you're watching a Rankin Bass holiday special, it's not a flaw, that's Animagic, and it was brutal to pull off. Rankin and Bass didn't make this in New York or Hollywood. they outsourced the whole thing to MOM Productions in Tokyo, supervised by stop-motion pioneer Tadahito Mochinaga. International animation collaboration decades before anyone called it global production. The result was 18 months of painstaking work.
We leave tomorrow together.
But the abominable will see my nose and get us all. I've got to go alone.
Nonsense. It's all for all and one for... one for... Let's get some shut-eye.
But
It's all settled.
Animators moving tiny puppets by fractions of an inch, photographing them frame by frame, 24 frames for every single second of footage. Your patience for a buffering YouTube video has nothing on these people. Oh, and that glowing nose, it's not red paint. The animators crammed a custom 12-volt light bulb inside a 4-inch puppet, ran wiring through Rudolph's body and into the set, and made it actually glow on camera. In the early 1960s, that was borderline wizardry or sorcery. But here's the detail that always gets me. Mochinaga and his assistant spent 2 full days at Nara National Park in Japan just watching deer. Thousands of them, studying how they walk, how they stand, and how they react. 2 days observing real animals for a puppet in a Christmas special. That research is why Rudolph's movements feel grounded instead of rubbery. The craftsmanship went down to the smallest detail. Rudolph's head carved from katsura wood, his eyelids made from finely shaved leather. Everything was miniature. Young Rudolph stood 4 inches tall, Santa was 8, and the Bumble was 14 inches of terrifying fluff. 18 months, 200 puppets, 24 frames per second. That's why Rudolph still holds up. Not because it was the only Animagic special, but because you can see the care, patience, and craftsmanship in every single frame. Number 6. Romeo Muller, the writer who turned songs into Christmas universes. When people talk about Rankin Bass, the names that come up are Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass. They produced it, directed it, and they got all the credit. But the guy who actually made these specials work as stories, yeah, that's a screenwriter named Romeo Muller, and somehow almost nobody knows his name. Here's what Muller did with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He took a short poem and a 3-minute song and turned them into a full narrative with actual characters. Hermey the elf who wants to be a dentist, Muller invented him. Yukon Cornelius, that was all Muller. The abominable snow monster, Muller again. None of them existed in the original story. One guy looked at a song about a glowing nose and said, you know what this needs? A prospector who licks his pickaxe and an elf with career ambitions. And he didn't stop there. Muller wrote Frosty the Snowman, the little drummer boy, Santa Claus is coming to town, the one that basically invented Santa's origin story from where he grew up to why he wears red.
Why, that's the silliest thing I ever heard.
Before Muller, Santa was just a guy who showed up with presents, but after Muller, Santa had lore, baby. Then he kept going. The Year Without a Santa Claus, Rudolph's Shiny New Year. At a certain point, this man was less a screenwriter and more the unofficial architect of American holiday mythology. There's a reason all these specials feel connected. Muller gave them a consistent voice. Warmth, sincerity, gentle humor, and a message that being different isn't a flaw, it's the whole point. He took songs meant to last 3 minutes and turned them into stories that have lasted 60 years. Rankin and Bass built the stage, but Romeo Muller wrote the heart. Number 5, when Rankin Bass tried to build a Rudolph universe. After Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer became a runaway hit, one thing was clear to Rankin and Bass. They didn't just have a Christmas special, they had a brand. So, over the next decade, they tried to see how far that glowing red nose could go. The first follow-up came in 1976 with Rudolph's Shiny New Year. Instead of Christmas, the story shifted to New Year's Eve. Santa tells Rudolph that baby New Year, named Happy, has gone missing, and if he isn't found, time itself will freeze on December 31st forever. Bold idea, but strange execution.
Have a happy, never have a worry or fear.
Rudolph travels to the archipelago of lost years, meets a giant clockwork whale named Big Ben, and encounters living embodiments of past years like 1776 and 1 million BC. Now, if that sounds like a lot, it was. The special did fine, it still pops up around New Year's and fans remember it fondly, but it never came close to the original. There was too many moving parts and too much explaining. Then came the big swing. In 1979, Rankin Bass went all in with Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July, a feature-length crossover that merged their 2 biggest characters into one shared universe. Rudolph, Frosty, Jack Frost, Santa, all in the same movie.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
was the Avengers of holiday specials, except 20 years too early and with more melting. They stacked the voice cast. Mickey Rooney, Ethel Merman, Red Buttons, and they swung for the fences, but bigger didn't mean better. At nearly 90 minutes, the thing was crowded, convoluted, and way too busy. The tight pacing and emotional clarity that made the 1964 special timeless was gone, buried underneath mythology and subplots. And here's the real problem. The original Rudolph works because it's simple. One misfit, one message, one payoff. The sequels kept adding. There was time travel, wizards, crossovers, and the heart that got lost somewhere in the archipelago of lost years. So while Rudolph's Shiny New Year and Christmas in July are fascinating detours and very Rankin Bass in their ambition, they always felt like side stories. They were fun, weird, and occasionally brilliant, but the magic of Rudolph, well, that only worked once. Number 4, NBC almost passed. Believe it or not, NBC came very close to passing on what would become the longest running Christmas special in television history. In the early 1960s, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer looked like a risky bet, and network executives weren't exactly lining up to take it. The animation worried them. Stop motion, branded as Animagic, wasn't the industry standard. Traditional cell animation was what audiences expected, and the slightly jerky movement of stop motion looked unpolished to NBC.
And run like crazy. Come on!
Maybe even amateurish. Not exactly what you want in a primetime holiday slot. The source material didn't help either. Building a primetime special around a department store mascot didn't exactly scream prestige. And aside from one big name, the voice cast wasn't going to turn heads at NBC. Any one of those might have killed the project, but all three together, NBC had every reason to say no. So why didn't they? 2 words: General Electric. GE was the sole sponsor of the special. They were using it to promote their new accent line of Christmas tree lights, and they wanted this thing on the air. Because GE was footing the bill, they had leverage, and they used it. NBC didn't greenlight Rudolph out of enthusiasm, but GE essentially bought the time slot and insisted. Without GE's checkbook and Ives' reputation, Rudolph might never have made it to air. Instead, NBC took the chance reluctantly and launched a tradition that's now been running for over 6 straight decades. Not bad for a special the network almost said no to. Number 3, the Christmas special that never took a year off. When Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer first aired on Sunday, December 6th of 1964, nobody could have guessed it was starting one of the longest undefeated streaks in television history. Because here's the record that actually matters. Rudolph is the longest continuously running Christmas TV special in US history. And the key word there is continuously. Rudolph has aired every single year without missing one since its debut. No gaps, no rediscovered classic revivals, no long stretches buried on cable at 2 a.m. It started on NBC, moved to CBS in 1972, and returned to NBC for its 60th anniversary in 2024. 60 years, 2 networks, 0 breaks. Your favorite streaming service could never. Now, some nostalgia buffs will point out Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol aired first in 1962. That's true, but Magoo's broadcast history is spotty.
Be gone! Be gone, you miserable little beggars, before I give you something to sing about.
Rudolph never left. So while there are plenty of holiday specials that are beloved, only one can say it's been a guaranteed part of the TV schedule for 6 straight decades. An unbroken chain, 60 years, and one glowing nose. Number 2, from a dusty attic to a $368,000 treasure. For decades, the original Santa and Rudolph puppets from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer were considered the holy grail of Christmas memorabilia. Most people assumed they were long gone, destroyed after production wrapped in 1964, tossed out, or simply lost to time like so many early TV props. Then, in 2005, they resurfaced on PBS's Antiques Roadshow. Where else? The nephew of a woman named Barbara Adams brought 2 battered puppets to a roadshow taping. She had worked as a secretary at Rankin Bass in the early 70s, and Arthur Rankin Jr. gifted them to her. The figures, Santa and Rudolph, had been used as Christmas decorations and toys for her nieces and nephews. Needless to say, they were in rough shape. The appraiser knew immediately what he was looking at and valued them at $8,000 to $10,000. The episode became a sensation. Suddenly, a stop-motion reindeer that once fit in the palm of the hand was national news. But the story didn't end there. Eventually, the puppets were professionally restored, including Rudolph's nose light, which glowed again for the first time in decades. Then came the auction. In November of 2020, the restored Santa and Rudolph went up for sale. Experts predicted they might fetch around $150,000. They sold for $368,000. The buyer purchased them specifically so they could be displayed publicly. No private vault, no billionaire's basement. Today, those once forgotten puppets are on permanent display at the Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta, Georgia. From a leaky attic to a museum, from forgotten toys to $368,000 artifacts, it turns out some Christmas miracles just take 60 years to arrive. Number 1, Yukon Cornelius wasn't supposed to be a hero, but he became one. Yukon Cornelius walks into Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer like he owns the place.
Who are you?
Who am I? The name's Yukon Cornelius, the greatest prospector in the North!
The bluster, the bravado, the absolute confidence of a man licking his pickaxe and charging headfirst into danger, but originally, that wasn't the plan. In early drafts by screenwriter Romeo Muller, Yukon Cornelius was designed to be a guide and comic relief, a loud, lovable wanderer who helps Rudolph and Hermey survive the Arctic wilderness. He was there to lead them to the island of misfit toys and add personality along the way. That's it. The idea of Yukon playing a crucial heroic role, especially in the showdown with the abominable snow monster, was added later in development, and that late decision became one of the most memorable moments in the entire special. When Rudolph, Clarice, and their families are trapped by the Bumble, Rudolph actually tries to save them first. He charges into the cave, challenges the monster, and the Bumble knocks him out cold with a stalactite. The title character attempts the rescue and fails. That's when Yukon steps up. Hermey lures the monster out by making pig noises, which already tells you how chaotic this rescue plan is, while Yukon triggers an avalanche and drops a boulder on the Bumble's head. Hermey then does what any aspiring dentist would do. He pulls out every single one of the monster's teeth. And then comes the moment that sealed his legend. Yukon charges forward with his sled dogs and plunges over the cliff alongside the Bumble, disappearing into the abyss. For a moment, it looks like he sacrificed himself to save everyone else. Rudolph and Hermey genuinely believe he's gone. And then, at the very end, Yukon reappears alive and well, casually announcing the immortal line, "Bumbles bounce."
But you went over the side of the cliff.
Didn't I ever tell you about Bumbles? Bumbles bounce!
And for a character who wasn't supposed to be the hero at all, that's pure silver and gold, baby. And there you have it. 15 weird and wild facts you didn't know about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Which one surprised you the most? Let us know in the comment section below, and hit like if this brought back those old school Christmas TV memories, and subscribe for more trips back to the shows and specials we grew up on. Until next time, this is Remember When.